Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's episode of Canal Days. As always, I am your host Carrie, along with my co-host, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Kumo. Our Canal Days series delves into the vast collection of historical sites throughout Massachusetts, with Robert's expertise of the local history as our personal guide. Each episode, we uncover history throughout local communities, highlighting the historic landmarks and uncovering their seminal significance. Today's episode of Canal Days will be introducing and canvassing the main street of Easthampton, Massachusetts. So, Robert, inform us of some of the main attractions along Main Street.
Main Street's a very long street within Easthampton, and there's some buildings that are from the 1700s, others from the 1800s, 1900s, so forth. There's the Benjamin Lyman House, which is only about 100 feet off of the main center of Easthampton on Main Street, and it's from 1785. It's at 167 Main Street. And so you get these very old homes that predate the existence of Easthampton itself. This would have been part of the community very early on, and it stayed around. And I'm glad it's still around because now you have these historic buildings around. And other attractions around, you have churches on this street, you have cemeteries on this street, you have commercial buildings around, and a lot of the original is still around. Of course, one of the big highlights is the Easthampton Town Hall, which is from 1869. It's not the first one, and it's not a town hall anymore. That's been taken over by a modern one. It has plaques on the outside in memory of the men from Easthampton who gave their lives for the country, and there are a lot of them, right? And it's a beautiful building in Italian Palazzo style. And other things that are around, the church next to it used to be a cemetery. And that downtown cemetery was moved about 1865. Nowadays, there's still the building that was put in place, a cemetery called the Providence Methodist Church. It's now a daycare, but it still looks very much like the church that was put there in 1893. So it has a very nice look to it. And then there's Old Banks. Here's Shop Row. So the Old Bank itself is from 1871. It's the First National Bank of Easthampton. A very old building. And so most communities downtowns will be lucky to have some of these buildings around. And Easthampton has quite a few, especially the western edge of it has quite a few very old buildings right in a row. Starting out Shop Row, it starts with the Masonic Building, 1861. So this is a wonderful place, and Easthampton is very fortunate to have a very historic looking downtown.
And reveal any historically significant homes amongst the street.
So once you get through this little commercial district, which is only about 200 yards long, you start to get into the homes of the area. For instance, there's the Francis Green home, and he was a medical doctor. And his house is 115 Main Street, and it's from 1850. And he would have been one of the first medical doctors within the town of Easthampton. And then as you go towards the south from there, there's the John Scott House, the Clark House, the Pomeroy House, the Scholes House, then the William Lyman House, which is 1851 build, and it's on 143 Main Street. It, for a while, was the Daughters of American Revolutionary War house, and all these buildings still around. It was just absolutely incredible. And to have a commercial district and then a residential district almost entirely intact on the western edge is incredible. And then there's Johnson Home from 1850 at 165 Main Street, and then I mentioned the Benjamin Lyman House at 167. And that's from the year 1785. So, a wonderful place, and I'm going to have a tour along that western edge and hopefully along the eastern edge next year, the year 2026. So hope to see you then.
And stick around and we'll be right back after a quick break. Are you fascinated by local history and eager to investigate the obscure treasures off the beaten path throughout the state of Massachusetts? Or maybe just seeking an unforgettable cultural activity for family and friends to enjoy? Look no further than Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, founded by Robert Como. With over a decade of experience, Robert offers captivating tours and presentations of historic sites and landmarks throughout the state. Whether you're interested in canals, cemeteries, charming churches, or more, Robert's tours provide a unique and enriching experience for all. And that's not it. You can also schedule private tours tailored to your interests, ensuring a personalized adventure and unforgettable memories. Perfect for families or groups of all sizes, making for an exciting hands-on learning experience that brings history to life. Simply visit holyokecanaltour.org or email bobcat4214, capital B, @yahoo.com to book your private tour today. Getting back to our podcast, familiarize us with the cemeteries that are on the street.
Fine, there used to be 2 of them. Nowadays there's only 1 of them. If you count the extensions in Southampton, there's 2 more in Southampton on the same street called College Highway in Southampton. So it's loads of cemeteries on the street. If you call the extension into Westfield, there's 3 more. So this whole highway, Route 10, has loads of cemeteries. So within Easthampton itself, the Main Street Cemetery, started in 1855, is along here. It's now one of the more popular cemeteries in town. And by now it's an Elan-style cemetery. And it turns out a lot of the industrial giants of Easthampton are buried within this cemetery. So it's a nice place to visit. And Easthampton has had another cemetery along the street that was moved in 1865, 10 years after the Main Street Cemetery was made. And most of the move was into the Main Street Cemetery itself. And a lot of the burials are scattered around the old parts. But anyone that did not have a family member show up for the deceased member, that stone and burial of the person was put into the very back of the cemetery. So this road has lots of churches, schools, and cemeteries all along.
And summarize how the street has developed and changed throughout the years.
Well, the west side of it is very, very much intact. The east side has a lot of changes on it. There's a couple of new banks put into place. The Williston Academy has been taken out of its original location and put into a modern location down at Pleasant on another street. And then there's right off the edge of it, there's stores, so forth. So a lot of big changes has happened to the eastern edge. But even the eastern edge has some old buildings on it, a couple of old hotels. And of course it has the Payson Congregational Church, and it has the Episcopal Church on it. And those are close to being the originals, and their rectories are alongside them. So in portions, it's very much intact, and then in other portions, there's big gaps where it's not intact at all. And a lot of the streets coming off it are not as intact, but still a lot of those streets have a lot of historic buildings along them. So it's a great street to walk on and see history in front of you. It's incredible to know that there's so many buildings in a row that are very old and still intact. And Easthampton should take pride, and they do, in their main street. And the Community Preservation Act of Easthampton has been used a few times on this street. So hope to see you next year on one of the tours.
And thanks for listening to Canal Days and our episode on Main Street in Easthampton, Massachusetts, and joining us on our journey through the rich history of the Connecticut River Valley. We hope you enjoyed uncovering some of the hidden and overlooked marvels and their fascinating stories that shaped our past in the state of Massachusetts. A special thanks to Robert Camus, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, for sharing his passion and expertise with us. Remember, you can find more information about Robert's tours, book private tours, and explore the Canal Days video and podcast series at holyokecanaltour.org. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, comment, and share. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for future episodes. Don't forget to keep exploring and discovering all that is hidden in plain sight all around us. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to tune to our next episode of Canal Days. Until next time.